Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar this morning on mitigating breach risks and building customer confidence under DPDP. My name is Shomik Ghosh. I'm Senior Assistant Editor with the Economic Times CISO, and I'm glad to be your moderator and host for this webinar. Now, as India enters a new chapter in data protection, the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, or the DPDP Act, signals a monumental shift, placing accountability, architecture, and user trust at the heart of business operations. Now, for enterprises managing sensitive data, particularly in high-impact industries such as BFSI insurance, the stakes have never been higher. Now, regulatory obligations around data localization, consent management, and breach notifications are demanding. And they're not only procedural compliance, but also foundational changes in how data is stored, accessed, and protected. And that is going to be the core part of our conversation in this webinar. But how should forward-thinking organizations prepare for this? And this is what we're going to be uncovering in today's webinar. Let me welcome our co-hosts and moderators for this panel discussion. We've got Sanjay Pai. He's the Vice President at Tata AIG. Sanjay, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's an absolute pleasure hosting you.
Thank you, Shomik. Thanks for giving me the opportunity for sharing my thoughts, which may be useful to the industry.
Sure. Now, Sanjay here will be sharing first-hand insights into navigating DPDPA complexities, especially within a high-risk sector such as insurance and the BFSI vertical. We've also got Amrita Muktali with us. She's the Chief Product Officer at Skyflow. Amrita, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Great to be here, Shomik, and thank you. Good to see you, Sanjay.
Hi, Amrita.
Now, Amrita is going to be showcasing how Skyflow's Data Privacy Vault empowers organizations to stay compliant, secure, and scalable in a privacy-first world. Right? So with that, let's get started with today's discussion. And over to you, Sanjay.
Thank you. Screening with me first.
Sure. And folks, we want this, interaction to be, a very lively interaction. We want a lot of back and forth. We're going to have poll questions, so we would request you to please, jump into the poll questions. Please share your insights with us. What do you feel about the DPDP? And that's going to help us frame our conversation. So do that.
So thank you, Shomik. Thank you, Amrita, for being partner with me for this particular sessions. Let me just bring in with my experience of around 27, 28 years in the industry, both from a public and a private, whereas in the first 10 years of my career, I was in service handling more from a naval IT and other area. And currently in the private, for some of the major insurance companies, I've seen two parts of organizational management. Is there one thing right? I would say both are in its own forms, doing the right activities in the right way. But there are always learnings which I can bring in from my earlier career to this. But starting, which I would want to actually, I remember a phrase which I think almost anybody from a service will remember is, more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. Because your preparation will help you to actually take across your objective to be met without a flaw. We have seen it happening in our recent endeavor with our neighbor, that our forces could actually handle the situation much better with the limited technology and our own Atmanirbhar Bharat and things like that, where we could handle all those drones or whatever you call with the technology integrations and other things which was possible in our own and with the 400 and things like that. So as much as you prepare yourself for that eventuality, you will be in a better situation to handle that. Second, other learning which I took it from the current insurance career for last 17, 18 years is the plan, do, check, act, right? It's a very common thing which you say. So there again, the planning is very important for us to do. So if you look at from that and this, how much do we envisage, how much do you plan, and then handle the situation, we will be better handling the requirements. So today what I'll try to take through is nothing but what is the challenges which are seeing in with DPDP coming to us for implementation, right? That's what my first part of slides would be, and thereafter, what I see as can be a solution, and that solution which can help us tackle that not for a short-term view but a long-term view, because in our normal private industry, what I've seen is people generally work for a financial year. Your appraisals come for a financial year, and therefore everything rolls around that 6 months, 6 to 1 year tenure. But in a cultural change like this, where we are talking about DPDP, it's actually a cultural change rather than a process or an application change. And for that, I think we should plan for 2 3 years. Maybe the implementation is short-lived, but the impact of it will be long. And in case if we handle that better, then our recurring maintenance activities will be drastically reduced. And that's my endeavor of taking this architecture. Although it's at the end of it, you might find that it is obvious, but sometimes we oversee that. So this everybody knows how was the journey in 2017. It is almost 8 years now with the act and the rules also now up. Only thing is the notification for compliance need to come in. We know that 6 years down the line from 2017, we got the DPDPA, and thereafter in the last by March or end of April, end of March, we were all ready for compliance. So, rules were available. Just a key highlights from the DPDP. I didn't want to go into detail, but primarily, if you look at it, it's no personal data, no non-personal data covered. So, but if you see the 4 or 5 highlighted areas, no materiality or risk-based threshold, this is exactly a challenge for us. If you look at from a how are we going to handle, right, when there is a breach? Because all these compliances are coming across to us haunting only when there is a breach. Otherwise, it's going to be limited within the company and things like that. So if there is no materiality or risk-based threshold, then every smallest leakage need to be informed as per DPDPA to the data principal and to the data protection board. Financial penalties you have already know. Categorization itself of a personal data is also a challenge, right? So every data what we are capturing today in our insurance or banking may have personal data and may not have personal data. So that's also categorization is pretty important. And the way we used to work for last whatever number of years, it's not focused towards that. It was more focused from business. And compliance is largely on data fiduciaries. These are some of the biggest challenges as a significant proposed significant data fiduciary. We may have it in our kitty handle. Another important thing to learn from the DPDPA is the data principals rights, because finally we're working towards them. We are working for their rights to be handled, right? In 2017, when the personal rights was given, the expectation is that the personal data what we are carrying, we should be able to provide to them as per, and when their requirements are there, we should be able to correct them and raise them in case it's statically not required. So these are some of the rights which is already there with them, and only it's going to be notified for us to be compliant. So what are we doing towards that to achieve those challenges which we have it in our respective companies, organizations, and things like that? Before going into that, I just want to spend a couple of minutes on this, because it's very, sometimes it is vague, sometimes every person looks at it in different way. Like it's a elephant in a room and you're touching different legs. So what is personal data? Because even the policy doesn't, the rules doesn't clarify, right? It just says, does not, personal data. Now, personal data, I just break it into two, the sensitive and the non-sensitive, two halves. Aadhaar number, PAN card, religion, caste, all are sensitive data. However, direct sensitive data is Aadhaar number and PAN card. Indirect is religion, caste. Why? Along with that, if you have Aadhaar number, that is a sensitive personal data. Coming to a set of data like gender, zip code, these are indirect and non-sensitive also, right? What is more important to look at is the direct non-sensitive. The full name individually doesn't have a problem, but in case your full name, mother's name, it become a can become a direct or with PAN card definitely, obviously, it becomes compositely direct data. Now, this if I give an idea, should we, in our architecture of handling the DPDPA, can we look at it in a different way? Can we look at not only the personal data, can we look at in terms of sensitive data? I'll tell you why I'm talking about that. Because when we talk about sensitive data, we are talking about handling the information security requirements as well, not only a data privacy requirement. Because today the challenge is breaches, right? It's all if and not when, or no, sorry, it's all when and not if, right? Anybody can get breached. Important is to look at saying that what are the measures we have taken in our organization to handle that breach. So primarily from the DPDPA angle, you know that you're supposed to give an itemized description of what data you're holding, specify the purpose against that, description of goods or services what you're providing to them. These are some of the details which we supposed to have against every personal data what we captured or capturing. Coming to the reasonable security safeguards which is expected from the DPDP Act, we are supposed to have technical measures like encryption, obfuscation, masking. Access controls need to be more strengthened. Confidentiality as such is expected. Why? Because monitoring and logging has to be better to avoid breaches. And also because we are supposed to inform a data principal, because that's going to be most reputationally impactful act at a later stage. Coming to the safeguards and contracts, third-party handling is much more important with this particular act coming into picture. Continuity measures of availability, integrity, and retention as such, that's another bigger challenge in organizations. Because earlier we used to keep it as much as, because if you have data storage, it doesn't mind to hold it. But with the law coming up, we are supposed to clear it off after our activity. And another bigger challenge, as I was talking about the perceived challenges, is the breach. How are the notifications going to be? How are we going to inform? What is the time duration do we have? Do we have infinite time to actually review, come back, do detailing it out, and then providing data principle? No. The expectation is first reporting should be without undue delay. This is the exact words. Next is follow-up reporting within 72 hours of reporting. That means we have max to max 3 days, right? So until unless we have our working done, as I said, you should sweat in peace. Until as you prepare yourself early and have everything in such a way so that you can just on a click you get the details and you know what is first avoid breach, and worst case in case it breached, still you know what has got breached and whom should be you inform it, ownership to everything, duration of retention, ownership, other things can be handled. That's where our life would be much simpler for a DPA or a DPO or maybe a CISO or CTO or even to CEO. So as different levels, what we are working in our organization, all of them have a common intention to handle the personal data or sensitive data, I would rather call it, in a better way so that we are safeguarded. Where should we work for this, right? There are around 16 domains as I look into the privacy area. Privacy notice, consent, cookie consent, data subjects rights management, breach notification, and the entire governance area of data minimization, purpose limitation, third-party privacy management, which is an important one. Because you know that here the responsibility lies entirely with the data fiduciary and not the data providers or processors. Inventory ROPA, we are supposed to have it for audits, data flow diagram, impact assessment, and the last but not the least, data retention, deletion, and disposal. This is a bigger, most challenging one, and until unless we have clarity on our details. So all the first row is all principal facing data, principal facing areas. The bottom line is mostly technology and operational, and the middle line is all governance, although all of them are integrated with each other. So coming to the technology related challenges, right? I've talked about the business related challenges in the areas. One of the biggest challenges in most of the organization today is that there are multiple applications And rightly so, because you have made centralized systems so that one dependency of one system going down is not there. However, for the same reason, the mobile number or the personal data of a particular person, for example, in this particular case, Rajiv, and the mobile number is shown, that moves from an application front end to the API gateway and then application server until the last AI for the LLMs. And on the way, it stores at multiple layers, right? In the logs, in the ETL logs, databases, reports, and also in the third party systems. So the PI sprawl is huge. And I would rather say sensitive data sprawl is huge. So what are the concerns do we have, right? We have, everybody will have concerns to actually, in case if we don't have it, control on this. Unprotected customer sensitive data, I would not say unprotected, as especially BFSI companies would have their own list of controls which has been put in because of our regulations we have been handling. But still, the governance is much difficult. We have to have so many systems, technologies, and processes to handle that. So centralized governance is always a challenge. Then data is all places because of all the operational requirements. So the current state is something like this. So if we want to implement DPDPA with this particular current condition, we have to do some of the things which I have highlighted here: field level encryption, key lifecycle management in each of these applications, transaction logs, the sensitive data audit, and these logs need to be cleared of the sensitive data and should not be maintained from the personal data perspective. Consent, DSR, and all these things need to be handled in each of the systems, integrating with the consent management system, right? And eraser and retention, each of the systems has to have a mechanism to erase and whenever there is a request coming. So what does it result in? Duplicated efforts across applications, fragmented governance, high compliance risks, significant operational overhead, and challenges maintaining the CI trial. So this is what our current state is. What I'm trying to bring in here is the simple principle. Assume there will be a data breach, make the stolen data 100% useless. And that's a very striking statement made by CIO, right? One of the insurance companies. And if you look at it, what is he talking about? What can we do about this? Who has to do this? Why? Where and how? Let me try to answer this. Safeguard sensitive data rather than I'm talking not only personal sensitive data. So therefore, what has to be identified by each one of us in our organization, that's but natural, right? Until unless you know what need to be cleared, you can't do it. So we need to think of sensitive data in our organization, identify them. Then technical team like the IT teams or maybe with support from the business, we can put in a solution architecture which I can explain in coming slides, and then go why are we need to do it? Obviously security, compliance, and ROI, because there's huge ROI with this particular architecture. Although there's some amount of extra degree of activity what we need to do, but that degree of activity is going to sustain you for a longer term and easier to maintain, and therefore the ROI will definitely come out within a couple of years. I am not even saying 3 years, I'm saying maybe 1 or 2 years. But the point is, it is going to do a much different way of working rather than the current state of patching what we do in a normal way of saying that, okay, we need to be compliant, put some application patches in different area, which doesn't give you confidence in the governance. Then where we should do applications, obviously the process also might be tweaked because of our requirements, and how we'll do it. So I'll go into detailing of this, right? This, if you look at it, simply the expectation is today how the state is. I'll just give an example: AD authentication. Most of our organization, especially BFSI, would be having an AD server to authenticate any particular person who is in the organization for accessing an application. And that particular cloud or the identity mechanism is separated off from a normal transactional systems. However, think about your all applications, let it be critical application or non-critical applications, our personal data, our sensitive data, our transactional data, all together in one particular system, right? There may be multiple applications, but each one of them will carry those set of data. But if you just bifurcate this into two, if you bifurcate that as sensitive PI data and the enterprise transactional data is separated out, just like what we have in Identity Cloud, you are going to have a marvelous change. You are going to humongous paradigm shift in our way of handling the entire privacy and information security together. And that's what the principle behind this whole solution architecture is. So what should we continue to do? Definitely, we need to have a data discovery. We need to classify the data as sensitive, and then we need to identify those personal data processes. What does it help? So more than a challenge, this is going to change to a opportunity for us, right? It is an opportunity for us to look at a foolproof long-term solution. Because once we do this one time, then classification is done, and you can always improve your personal data processes. You can safeguard in your information security area, and you can be safeguarded in the privacy perspective also. And all these changes can be done in business applications, integrated with the sensitive data mart, right? If we can create something called a sensitive data mart or an engine, and that data lies in particular engine where we in the next session you might hear from Amrita on this area, how that can be done. But this architecture where the sensitive data is centrally located, irrespective of which application it is required to be used, the sensitive data is going to be in one place, and all the tokens are going to be used in all these business applications, so that anytime any particular data breach or a dumping of that application database also doesn't impact you as an information security head. So how will it work from a privacy perspective? Consent management system, you will require it, but that can now centrally talk to the sensitive data mart. It can have tags to actually decide how much time you are supposed to keep it, which data can be used or which data cannot be used. All this can be done at one place, right? Secondly, the data subject rights management. Again, that also you can centrally connect to this particular sensitive data mart to actually see whether whenever somebody comes, it is a one-click call, and it can be made online for him to decide, okay, what is his data available once authentication is done. And then when he says, okay, I want to erase it, that can be also automated to the just a click. We can have a logic behind to decide whether it's statutorily required. Then you can give a revert to him automatically saying, okay, this cannot be deleted because of so and so reason, but others can be deleted. And online online you can actually modify his data and retain it. Third party management, definitely, because this works like any other application system within your thing. A third party CRMs, or just example, a customer call center application needs to actually do a campaign, right? We provide some data today for doing campaigns. They can actually connect to our system, get one single record at a time when the calling is going to happen. And therefore, even if a breach is going to happen, it's going to be one single record and not going to be entire 1,000 records, 10,000 records, what we provide for a customer data call management. And thereafter, if that record is no more required to be kept there. So once because how is that going to happen? The API call is going to happen. The tokenized data is going to go to the third party in 10,000 numbers. So therefore, even that gets breached, no problem. Until unless it integrates, it calls for that particular data. That time authentication happens, and then only that one record goes to him. So tomorrow, if we want to time that data, saying that okay, this data should not be allowed to be accessed after say 30 days or say 5 days, we can time that and ensure that access is removed for that particular third party at a later time, any point of time. Not the least but important, data privacy impact assessment management. This is another important for all the significant data fiduciaries, or even for the data fiduciaries, because initially we are supposed to do this. So centralization brings in a lot of value. This is the concept which we need to think rather than just doing a fix, because this brings in lots of benefit to our organizations for a long term. And once done, it's like fix it, and then it's only a maintenance limited to any new changes we need to bring it here. So this tokenization, what I talked about, it's going to change the paradigm, right? It is going to move the entire data which is sprawled across the applications, as we can see here, API gateway, load, application server, everything. It is going to be moved into a centralized data store, which can do the tokenization part. The sensitive data comes to this place, the token goes back, it remains in all these places. Now, whenever they need to actually work for a normal operational activity, the token is provided. and then the detokenized personal records comes in and they can view it. In case if in access, then only it's seen. If the access is not there, this tokenization engine will not provide that access, and therefore you have a dual control of that, even the personal data. And rest all things which comes along with that, the centralization, right? The encryption, tokenization, the single point consent of DSR, that is data subjects have access rights workflows at one place. Erasure and retention, this is another biggest challenge what we see. That also can be because just a stop at that data mart can stop across all the databases across applications. So you're not worried about whether you are going to be non-compliant because it is lying in somebody's machine, application, or anywhere. Then audits also, transaction logging and information security governance, obvious cases. So these reduce duplications, ongoing compliance, improved CI triad, assurance in governance. This is what is going to be brought in. So if you look at this whole architecture now from the data domains, what we saw, the 16 of them. Once if you are able to implement this architecture, how is it going to change the paradigm for us, right? As a DPO, maybe a CISO or a CTO or a CEO. The entire data principal facing domains can be taken care just on a click versus few days or weeks, which is otherwise required. Just imagine today, if I come to your organization and ask, what is my data with you? You will require to search around to find in which application where it is lying. And still can't be 100% confident that you have removed everything. Or for that matter, for myself. So if we are able to put this architecture, we can always go back and say, okay, I'm sure that nothing else is remaining. Same with third-party management, which is the biggest challenge, right? Which I already talked about. ROPA, the format preserving tokenization, which I learned from this particular tool, which probably Amrita will talk about at the end of it, is that it helps you to actually handle without much changes in your application, because even the validations will not be required to be changed in your respective applications, because the tool provides you a technology by which the formats remain same. As I earlier showed you that particular slide where the data is moving Rajiv and the mobile number of 10 digit, it is maintained at the other side where the applications are also, only the numbers are changing, the format is maintained. So that's a beautiful concept which can ensure that your changes in your application is limited. The simplified compliance has already seen, information security is at a best state, and DPA governance, obviously, but not the least. Everything's taken care of. That's what I think. I would leave it to Amrita and team to take it forward. Any queries, happy to answer. Thank
All
you,
right.
Shamik.
Okay, I think that was really comprehensive. Thank you so much for that. We've got a lot of questions which have come in from the audience, and audience members, I would request you to share your questions on the in the Q&A box, and we'll take them as they come. Now, before I invite Amrita as well, we have a couple of poll questions that we want the audience to take. So, with that, can we have the first poll question, please? So, what's your biggest concern following a data breach? Is it the loss of customer trust, regulatory penalties, financial losses, operational disruption, or reputational damage? Okay, I think we would have recorded enough votes by now. Folks, can we close the poll and then share the poll results on our screen as well? Close once. All right. But then loss of customer trust, of course, is number one, followed very closely by regulatory penalties and then a reputational damage. We also have operational disruption and then financial losses. Loss of customer trust. I mean, yeah, that is a big one. Sanjay and Amrita, thank you for joining us. So, loss of customer trust, of course, is a big one, but regulatory penalties cannot be ignored. I mean, the maximum penalty that entails with DPDP breach could go up to 250 crore, and people are concerned about that. Okay, so what is your organization's biggest challenge in preparing for the DPDP Act? Is it understanding the regulatory requirements, ensuring data localization and storage compliance, building internal data governance processes, or managing third-party data risks?
Hopefully, after Sanjay's presentation, the first one is not a problem anymore. Everyone understands the regulatory requirements and
Yeah,
figure it out.
Sanjay. A few of the people, a few of the attendees in our Q&A box also said that there were some great highlights, and if there's a way you could share this presentation. So if you can, if you can put up something on your LinkedIn, I think that'd be great.
Sure, I just do that.
Yeah. Right. I think we've got enough votes for poll 2 as well. Can we close the poll and pull up the poll results? Okay, so the majority here, 41% goes to building internal data governance processes. And the next one is understanding the regulatory requirements, followed very closely by managing the third-party data risks. All right, can we close the poll 2 results as well? All right, Amrita, from the poll results, I mean, is it something that was aligned to what you expected? I mean, this has been your experience with
Yeah.
customers you've worked with?
I think it's quite aligned, and I think per my experience, I think slowly it's going to shift
Okay.
because everyone's now trying to grok. What is this? What am I supposed to do? What's happening? They're a
Mhm.
little scared, worried. And then once that kind of grounding comes in, then you see a shift in terms of, the second poll was bang on, right? Then it gets into like, okay, how do I set up these data governance? Now I know what needs to be done. The
Yeah.
how is then comes in. So very aligned with, how I've seen, a lot of companies starting to think about all of this.
All right, all right. Now, Amrita, I would hand it over to you. Tell us how you look at DPDP, and also, based on your experience and your observations partnering with your customers in India, tell us how
Yeah,
does Skyflow go about it and what it brings to the table.
of course. It's great to, of course, be here. And I can reintroduce myself. I am Amruta. I'm the Chief Product Officer of Skyflow. Through my career, I've just worked with data. Data has been kind of the string of it. And at the end of the day, when we think of all these regulations, data is at the core of it. I started my career at Microsoft, was one of the initial people on Bing, and then startups and Salesforce. And now everywhere, the only common thread was how am I working with data? And towards the end, as we get into enterprises, how are we protecting and operating on this data? And this goes back to the breach, right? We continuously see breaches happening everywhere. I mean, recently there was a large breach in the Star Health in India. I mean, everything that you folks said in the poll, reputational, customer trust, that is key. Because once you have that, everyone's going to think twice, saying, oh my God, what's going to happen with my data? Is it going to go everywhere? And that's the end consumer. What's the impact to the end consumer and what's the impact to your business? And then comes financial. Like you mentioned, Shavik, these fines can go really high. And per the DPDPA laws, now, 30 crores is potentially what we might be looking at. And this is a big deal for a lot of businesses because trust and financial impact is a huge financial impact altogether because you're going to lose your customers and you're going to have to pay fines. So this is not something to be taken very lightly. And we always think of what are we doing today? And this comes up a lot. So whenever I'm talking to customers, they're like, oh, but I have all of these security tools. My team is doing this. We've had this budget, we've had this other team, but then why are these breaches continuously happening? That's something that we want to think about. And unfortunately, or fortunately, if however you look at it, things are moving very fast. Now, with AI, every single day, every single moment, you're seeing such great advancements in technology. Unfortunately, that means the same advancements are also happening on the hacker side, on the technologies that are breaching us. And that's why we have to be careful and look at the number of tools that exist. And we continue to do that. But the biggest problem is the scattering of PII. And I think Sanjay was also referring to this, where just figuring out when you're going to your data sources, where is my PII? Discovering your PII is your first thing. Where is the problem is your first thing. Once you know where it is, then you get to how and what I'm trying to do. And it's very common across the board. And this is exactly why, I'm going to repeat some of the things that Sanjay was mentioning, but it is think of a purpose-built solution. Today, we are putting PII together with all other data, treating everything the same way. I always tell people, imagine if all your gold and diamonds and jewelry in the house was kept along with your vegetables. Like, would you ever do that? Right? Because the value of each of these things is so different. It's the same way that this is your crown jewels, and you have to have a safe. You have to have, everyone goes to the bank and has a vault where you put a bunch of your precious, things. That's what you need even for your sensitive data, going back to because trust and financial things. And this is the IEEE standard as well. So they put this down in, I think, 2022. And I like to think about this because they actually articulated this in a very nice way. And data flow from left to right, from collection to storage to use. There's a lot of data that goes back and forth. Now, someone's going to think, okay, how do I secure this? I can't put all the data in one place. You shouldn't. You can't. That's where you just think of what I call the 1% of data. Only 1% of your data is that sensitive data that causes most of the breach. And that's what they are trying to articulate here is if you isolate that 1% of the data, everything here is stand-ins, then you are protected. And the same thing will help on the AI side. And this is a conversation I'm having pretty much every minute of every day, right? Everyone's like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Data remains the same, PII remains the same. Why does the way we protect and use it change when it's AI? In fact, it becomes even more important. This is one of the, Gartner TRISM, as they call it, the trust and AI risk framework. And if you look, front and center is data protection, because a model can never forget anything that you give it. So today, if you give a model all of the sensitive information, there is no way for a model to unlearn. And let's say, someone forgets about it. I mean, how many times have we had people leave organizations and you're like, I don't know what that person did. The same thing will happen with the model. I will not remember what data it got trained on. 6 months, 1 year down the line, suddenly my Aadhaar number, my bank number, everything is like just floating around and it's been given as responses. So this is a big piece to think about from operational and transactional purposes. So let's get into the how, right? That's what we're here for. Vault, the data privacy vault. And this is something that we do at Skyflow as well. And we are helping numerous companies in India across e-commerce, retail, finance, a lot of different verticals. And at the end of the day, all it's doing is helping you protect the sensitive data, but in a way that you can operate on it, so that it's not that you're locking it away, because what's the point in locking away sensitive data, because you need to use it. And I also love this quote. This is, I think, a common quote between Sanjay and me. But how do we do this? How do you make sure that if someone gets your hand on the data, it is useless? So I'm going to just take a simple example to highlight this, right? Let's say this is all the data of someone. If someone breaches into your database, they could today get all of this information and it's gone. But what if instead of getting this information that's circled in orange, what they get is this information that's in green? Does this even make sense? Like, I don't know what, if you send an email to this email address, it's not going to go anywhere, right? This is what you do. This is how you make the data useless. And the way we do it in Skyflow is with our patented tech called polymorphic encryption. What we've done is, for folks who know it, there is fully homomorphic encryption, which is basically a tech that exists on being able to do immense number of operations on any data. What we have done is we've adapted that to sensitive data, such that as you're protecting it, you can operate on it. So when your data gets converted into what we call polymorphically encrypted tokens, you can still operate on it. So, and we have different kinds of tokens. So if you have a credit card, the tokenized version of the credit card looks like a credit card. So your validations are not going to be broken in your systems. None of that will happen. And if you can see on the example right here, right, the plain text is this phone number. You may also think this is the real phone number, but it's really not. Same thing happens with the email. So there are different types of tokens that we are able to generate based on how you want to use it. Random tokens, consistent tokens. For AI, we have specifically created context preserving tokens. And I know there was one question in the Q&A as to exactly what we talked about. How do you make this data useless? That's how you make it useless while you still continue to operate on it. And what that gives you is the ability to govern. So imagine all of this data has now been converted into these polymorphic tokens in your environment. But then you're like, but what if I need to see the real data, right? What do I do? That is where this centralized governance comes in. Because what would happen is, let's say I am in the InfoSec team in India. I need to be able to see everything, right? I need to see the name, the email, and the PAN card number because I'm trying to do this. I can get that because the governance on that centralized piece of data will allow me. But the call center person does not need to see the PAN information. They just maybe need to see the last four or something. You could do that. And then the marketing person doesn't need anything except the email because they are probably trying to just send some, marketing campaign. This is the granular level of governance that you can have. And the other thing that happens here is every single piece is audited and logged. Who accessed what data, when, how, why, what was inserted, what roles were changed, what policies were changed. And all of this is dynamic too. And why this becomes critical is from a consent management perspective too. So imagine consent management here. I have consented that you can send me a marketing email. The governance will not only look at whether you have the ability to have access to it, but have I consented to it as well? And that's how this whole framework is going to help you. And all the things start getting, because a big part in DPDPA is about itemized consent as well. And that's what you're going to be able to do in a centralized fashion. Because imagine you are an organization that has 20 applications, all the PII scattered in 20 places, and you have the users that have given consent in 20 different places and itemized consent. It's going to be a nightmare trying to really manage all of this. And I think that's what went into people answering that, oh my God, I don't know how to adapt to the governance. And the vault will give you that power to be able to handle that consent in a centralized and very easy way. And that really removes the burden out of all of these pieces. And what starts happening is you're going from this complexity of distributed PII to centralized governance, fragmented consent records to the centralized vault. So you have a lot of governance and control over everything that has happened. Plus, you are also able to protect the information, continue to not be worried about trust and financial, impact on your organization or your company. And this is what happens once you use the vault. And Sanjay had shown this diagram, but basically everything in yellow now, de-risked. Go do all your operations. You can do equals, greater than, group by, do everything on these tokens. You never need to expose the real data unless you truly, truly need to act on it. And that's the key piece here. And data residency is also a big part because a lot of times until recently, you know, data of Indian nationals could be stored anywhere else. But now slowly with the regulations, all the data needs to be in India. You can't have the data go anywhere else, even if you're using apps or software or technologies that are based outside of India. So that's another piece that the vault gives you out of the box. And while I say all this, I know, engineers and others like me would be thinking, oh my God, this seems very complex. How does it integrate with everything? It doesn't need to be. And that's why, Skyflow started with this tagline saying, what if privacy had an API? Which really means what is privacy is just as simple as an API, which is what it is. With the Skyflow Vault, what we've done is we have exposed everything with APIs and SDKs, which makes it very easy to integrate with any system. And we have UDFs and native apps and connectors with every data store and every other augmented tech that you may have to make sure it seamlessly fits into your architecture. Otherwise, you can't do any of the things that we've been talking about in a seamless fashion. And the same thing happens with any data platform that you can think of. And in this case, I do want to highlight the fact that we sometimes forget thinking of unstructured data. We always keep thinking of data as columnar stores. But with AI and with all of these new data warehouses and lake houses, unstructured data is becoming even more powerful, and we are actually able to use it more. And the data privacy vault can help you work with unstructured data too. Protect it, detect sensitive information from unstructured data. It could be audio, text, images, PDFs, anything, and do the same polymorphic tokenization in all those places and help you protect it within these data platforms. And AI, of course, is there. So the same things translate into AI. At the end of the day, AI is powered by data. Data is money, data is food for AI, and data means sensitive data. And that is where we have a gateway that is powered by the same vault that helps you make sure that you're not leaking sensitive information into any of these models as well. And those are, a few things that I wanted to highlight as we talk about the data privacy vault, right? You're detecting sensitive information, then you're isolating or vaulting it. You are protecting it with your contextual polymorphic tokenization centrally, governing it, which is most important, along with your consent, and then you're doing compliance on top of it as well. So all of these things together in a single solution is truly what you need to be able to easily comply to these laws. And sometimes I tell people, even if these laws are not there today, this is just good practice. This is good practice of privacy first architecture, because doing this later on becomes very expensive. Then you're starting to kind of, do crazy surgery on your architecture, and then your engineers go like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. um how are we on time, Shamik?
We're okay. I mean, we've got some questions. Sanjay has taken a lot of the questions offline, but
Awesome.
yeah, we still have quite a few questions here, about 5 or 6 questions that we want to address. But then, yeah, if you've got some case studies to demonstrate, that'd be great.
That would be great. So let me do this. One of the things that I did want to highlight, if one, is one of our customers, which probably everyone here knows, is Deserve, the wealth management platform that we have. Deserve actually is a very interesting use case for us, because they had a platform that they were putting out there. They saw that they are going to have immense amount of growth, and they decided to kind of take this privacy first architecture approach across everything. They took all the 800,000 records that they had, they put that through the Skyflow vault, and then used Snowflake. So in Snowflake, all of the sensitive data is tokenized. So now you don't have to worry about, oh my God, this dashboard showed my email, or some other person was querying or had an Excel spreadsheet that had something. And the other great part is we actually were able to do this, or they were actually able to integrate the vault inside their architecture within about just over 3 months. And that is a big testament to their team, which is an amazing team. I have to tell them they're really great to work with, as well as the simplicity of having everything in one place. And if you look at their architecture, it's like all the data is coming in. They have a load balancer. They have Skyflow that, talks to different data stores. It's pretty basic, and all their applications just have a privacy layer in there. So this is just one example I wanted to highlight, so people can start, relating to this, or thinking about, how can this fit into your architecture. And of course, we have a lot of different case studies that we may not have enough time to go through. But that's what I wanted to talk to you folks about. And I think we can take questions.
All right. Thanks so much for that. And Sanjay, I would want to welcome you back on our video. And that was a great presentation, Amrita. Thank you so much for that. There were questions on, when does polymorphic encryption take place? And I think that was answered during a session as well. I think we've got one from Vishal Chaudhary that I would want to direct towards you. So Vishal's asking us, for a manufacturing industry where there's not much of PII data, how is DPDP Act applicable? please throw some light on this.
Do we have Sanjay back? I don't think so. So,
Mhm.
in terms of how does DPDPA Act apply on this, I am not a legal person, so I would caveat with that. But at the end of the day, even if you don't have much of PII, think of what sensitive data that you have as a manufacturing organization that could impact your customer. And just think of that small piece of data. Your problem may not be as big as maybe a BFSI or a health organization, but make sure that even that small piece of PII, which is a lot of times in contracts, you may have signatures, you may have contracts, you may have people's contact information for your sales team that has gone and done some leads, your marketing. So those are some common places to think about. And usually what we found is logs and analytical systems are the two biggest places where PII gets multiplied and floated around. So that's one of the things that I would highlight. But yeah, I mean, from the DPDPA Act, I think it is focused a lot more on the BFSI, and Sanjay knows a lot more about it. But that's kind of how I know that.
All right, thanks for that. We've got one from Tejinder Pal Singh, who's asking us typically how much time could it take to implement these changes from ground up in an organization? And Sanjay, I would want to take your inputs on this as well. How much time did you take at Tata AIG?
Let me tell you, primarily, the as I unfortunately I'm not on my desk to actually show you the this thing because I got dropped off from my I'm
Mhm.
joined by Mumbai. If you can, Amrita, if you can show the slide or somebody can show my slide where the centralized engine. There are three important things to be prepared in case if you've done your gap analysis initially, where you have identified the sensitive data, you have identified the data classification done, and your process have been identified. That's a time which you can generally take around 4 to 6 months, depending upon size of the organization. Thereafter, implementation of this architecture of sensitive data as a centralization, I see around, again, all depends upon the number of applications what you have in an organization where personal data processes. Organization like us, Tata IG, we have around 200 plus personal data processes which need to be tweaked, and say 30 odd applications where we will have data. I see if we do it parallelly because certain things, certain central applications are required to be done initially, but there is an architecture through which we can actually put across. I see not less than 8 months, 6 to 8 months to start with, and thereafter for smaller transactional applications it can come on. But as I said, this is a pretty important thing to note. Just don't go by saying that okay, saying uh, okay, there is bit more time than because any other patching solution which can be done parallelly may take 6 months or 4 to 5 to 6 months. This might take couple of months more, but however the benefit what you're going to reap across at the end of it will be much more than it's like buying a printer and spending more on the cartridges, or you want to buy something which can buy once and the cartridges will not cost you much.
Makes
All
sense.
right. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, Amrita, would you want to give your 2 cents on this as well? How much time does it typically take uh,
Yeah,
for an
I
organization
think,
to
I
prep?
mean, like Sanjay said, there's a lot of lead time before you get to the how and the implementation. And from an implementation standpoint, honestly, it depends on how complex your architecture is also. We've had people implement Skyflow within 3 days to, as I said, with deserve 3 months.
Right.
So that's kind of the range that there is. And also one thing I tell folks is don't try to boil the ocean. Figure out like small slices in which you can implement. So you can like find one use case or one part of the architecture, implement it, get success, then go to the next, then go to the next. And that way it's not like, oh my God, I'm trying to do everything at one time.
Right. Amrita, I'm going to take the next question and address this to you as well. This comes from Mohit Bhateja. So he's asking us Skyflow. Can Skyflow also help in discovering data if the database is hosted on pre-data center? I think prefabricated data
I
centers.
think he's looking at on-prem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
on-prem,
we
or is
we
it only on
have.
cloud-based?
Yeah. So I think we have supported customers on both. So both on-prem and cloud on-prem. So that's not a limitation for us in terms of, protecting information.
All right. And does Skyflow also take care of the backups as well, as the PII data may get into backups for e-discovery purposes?
Yes. So basically, there are a couple of things to think about there, right? So one is backups on your end or the customer's end where your databases are getting backed up. And if you are actually encoding your data and transforming it into the polymorphic tokens, your own backups will never have PII anymore, first of all. Now, the second thing is the vault itself will get backed up. There is DR, there is all of those pieces as well as for some customers, we have created what we call the archive vault. Because sometimes what happens, especially on the financial side, even if you tell someone that, hey, you know what, delete all of my PAN information or everything, for legal and compliance perspectives, you still have to keep that information for about 7 years. So all of those things are handled by Skyflow today.
Right.
Yeah,
One from,
it's almost 12 years
go ahead,
now.
Sanjay.
It's for 12 years. It's and therefore it's
Oh,
more
it's 12
important
years.
to act. And yeah.
Right, right. Thanks, Sanjay. All right, one from Deepak Anamalai. So traditional approaches of encryption of PII hits latency and performance. Does polymorphic encryption have better numbers? Um Either of you can chip in, or both.
Yeah, I can jump in here. So when you think of traditional encryption approaches, right,
Mhm.
you are basically spending time encrypting data, decrypting data, and using the data. First of all, I do not recommend that because it's not safe from a privacy perspective because all of your data is out there in plain text. But let's say even if you're doing that, that's the amount of time you're spending there. Now, the beauty of polymorphic encryption is you can do encrypted operations, which means you don't have to encrypt or decrypt data at all. It's as simple as you're actually working with real data. So the latency is not at all there that you incur with the encryption and decryption. So it's actually pretty much more faster than what you would do with encryption, decryption on that sensitive piece of data.
Understood. All right.
Yeah,
We've got one
and
from,
just want to add to it.
go ahead, Sanjay.
Yeah,
Sure.
Shamik, just want to add to it because that's a pretty important thing, especially in the data warehouse, information architecture. Because lots of queries happen, lots of activities happen in the data architecture there, and that time it's pretty important the data is available for a AI guy or maybe for a analyst and things. This architecture helps you to actually avoid doing that decryption first for so therefore it's pretty important that this polymorphic encryption is available in any particular tool in case if you want to
Mhm.
ensure the security along with the capabilities. And that's pretty good in this. That's what.
Understood.
Sorry, you can continue.
All right, thank you. One from Sridhar Sharma who's asking us, will Skyflow centralization approach be helpful in data cleaning in case of existing applications, having siloed PII info, which might be inconsistent for customers or users?
Yeah. I would put it like this. See, I said infosec and data privacy, but the most important advantage of this exercise is going to be for the business, especially the silos, what you talked about. Because
Right.
while doing this personal data identification processes, classification, what you're doing is actually going into the muck of data, what is lying across the organization, right? And once you centralize it, now you know what the data is there, what for it has been brought in, where it is, why it is required, where it is kept, when it is to be raised. All these questions get answered, and you are at one place. Just imagine the difference, because handling that as CISO for you know 6.5, 7 years, and now as a DPO thinking that trying to handle that is the biggest question is there in the mind. How can I confirmly say that okay, this data handled at one place? So therefore, definitely this is going to be helping out, no doubts. Yeah, sorry, Amrita, you can.
No, that's the perfect answer. I think it's uh, it's bang on.
All right. One from Anil Singh who's asking, I would like to ask Skyflow tools, will they implement at our environment, or do we have to send data to the Skyflow platform?
No, we do. We have multiple deployment, methods. So we do, which is very common in especially the banks and financial institutions that we work with, is we deploy into their environments and their cloud accounts. So that is available.
Okay. Also one here, and this one's right up your alley, Amrita. Rekha here is asking us, what's the differentiating factor of Skyflow with respect to other tools for data protection?
I'll need 4 hours, Rekha, to give you this answer. Uh, But I think on a high level, the way you want to think about it is the big piece is the polymorphic encryption, which is at the heart of everything, and also the stitching of all these things together. It's not just one piece, it's your polymorphic encryption with your fine grained governance controls, with the consent management, with the data residency, with the compliance, the auditing, all of that pieces packaged together in a single solution, which you won't get anywhere out there.
All right. Uh,
One more, let me add, although it's Skyflow,
Please.
let me add one thing which I am very happy out to have in this is nothing but the formatted tokens. Because
Yes.
Okay.
any implementer, right, any implementer who requires a tool to bring in these tokenizations, if you have 30 applications, just imagine the changes which is required for every tool which is required to actually, if the tokens are going to be in a long hashed format, right? This tokenized formatted tokens is going to make life lot less difficult for application managers. Please continue.
Right. Right. All right. Quick follow-up, Amrita. How does tokenization help the PII process?
In what way?
How does it make it easier when it comes to encryption?
Yeah, so I think the way it would work is now instead of actually searching, operating on, let's say, my Aadhaar number,
Mm-hmm.
you are now going to operate on a tokenized version of that Aadhaar number, which
Right.
means it's not the real thing, but you're able to do everything with it. You can search, you can verify whether I came to a particular location or not, how much gold did I buy, or all those kind of things. But you're not really seeing my real Aadhaar number. And like Sanjay said, it will still look like an Aadhaar number. So your
Mm.
validations across all your applications is not impacted. So that's how like tokenizing the PII will help you protect while you operate on it in a privacy preserving manner.
All right. And we've got one from Samir as well. I think we can take that. So Samir says we are into location tracking business, hence PII is the core of our data flow in the business right up to the bidding stage. Is there any off-the-shelf solution that we can go for, or is it the same process that Amrita mentioned just now? So, with respect to location tracking, is there any other data that you would need to protect, or how is PII applicable out here?
I think location is considered like that's why I like to use the word that Sanjay mentioned as sensitive data versus just PII,
Mm-hmm.
because location is also considered sensitive when it comes into particular situations. Sometimes even MAC addresses, right, are considered sensitive when you're looking at IoT devices and things like that. So all of those are considered sensitive. I mean, I'll put a plug in here. Your off-the-shelf solution is Skyflow, but I'll let Sanjay also comment on it.
See, the context is pretty important. That's why the personal data, as it brings in clarity, it is also vague. That's why I wanted to have that specific slide because the clarity is left to the people to imagine and take it forward. So therefore, it's very
Right.
important to do that. What is your sensitive data you have to identify within the organization? Once that is identified, classified, then it's all easy.
Right. You've just got. I've got one last question, and this goes to either of you. Now, PII related regulations. Like we've got the DPDP right now. They tend to evolve year on year. How do you think businesses should be ready for it? You don't have one fixed set of rules at this point in time. Uh, you could be having a different set of rules next year. How do you keep that flexible? And is there any way that Skyflow can help?
I think this particular presentation, if somebody has seen, I think they should have the answer because anything and everything to the sensitive data you can do when it is centralized.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, every small change will require impact into all those applications or where the data is being scattered. So just
Right.
imagine if you have all the data at one place, you need to add one particular PI as one particular data as a PI tomorrow. It is just bringing it as part of this centralization. If you want to increase or decrease the sensitivity, it is again at centrally at one place. Or tomorrow you need to erase or do some activity on any specific particular part of data. It is again centralized. It is so easy. Otherwise, it would have been a nightmare to actually do it. It would have been an exercise in itself.
All right, I think we can take one last question, and I think that's going to be an important part of it. Can we say that this tokenization takes care of the requirement of Aadhaar vaults?
Yes, it actually does, based on how Aadhaar Vault has been documented,
Mhm.
in terms of the diagrams and all the things that are required. Because I mean, we didn't have time to touch upon every possible thing in here, but one of the things I'll touch upon, which is important for Aadhaar Vault, is key management.
Right.
And Skyflow does have the ability for customers to bring their own key, use their own key management system, which also could be a HSF. So any of those things. So yes, you can use it as your Aadhaar store.
Right, fair enough. I think we've taken all of the questions that's coming from the audience, and you've addressed my questions as well. So again, thank you so much, Amrita and Sanjay, for talking about PII, talking about the DPDP, and also what Skyflow can bring to the process. And thank you, audience, for sharing your questions with us. They were great, and I hope you got to learn a lot as much as I did. And thank you again. Have a great day.